Today we're going to be performing a full transmission service on this Porsche Cayenne 958. Hopefully this guide is going to be very useful for you if you are a Cayenne owner or an owner of any other vehicle that's a VAG group vehicle with this 3 litre V6 diesel and this same transmission. I've now owned this car for around a year. It's a 2013 model Cayenne diesel and it's got 139,000 miles on the clock now. I was told by the previous owner that it had had a gearbox service recently, around 10,000 miles ago, if that's the case, but it's not stamped up in the book and there's no evidence or invoices. So I'm not sure if it was just the gearbox or if he'd done the diffs and the transfer case as well. Today, we're going to get all of that done. If you look back at the playlist, you'll know that I've completed a full service on this engine. I even had some problems with this car with the old coolant leak in the engine valley, all of which now is fixed. The last thing really playing on my mind is the transmission service, which is why we're getting onto it now. Even though the car's not asking me for it, I want to get it done just so that I know, for my own peace of mind, this is fully serviced up to date, and then we can be back onto its normal schedule. I'm going to try and keep this as concise as possible for you. I've already done the research and got the stuff, so I know exactly what you're going to need to do this. I know what tools you need. I know all the torque specs. You can follow along. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the service kit that I've got on the bench. I've got all this stuff linked in the description so you can be certain you're buying the right stuff to service your car with. I've laid them out on the bench here in order of appearance underneath the car. So we've got front differential, gearbox, transfer case, rear differential. Starting with the front differential, you're going to need 75W90 gearbox oil. I've gone for Ravenol VSG. You're going to need 0.8 litres, so we've got a 1 litre bottle. For the gearbox, this comes in a nice service kit where you can get it all in one go. It comes with the filter, the gasket and the oil. This is the correct Aisin automatic transmission fluid, which is ATF 0WS. We've got 7 quarts here. I do believe you're going to need 6 litres to 6.5 litres for a service refill. If it was a dry fill, you'd need 9 litres, but of course the gearbox is starting with fluid in, so that's what we've got. The transfer case, this is DTF1, which you'll need. I've gone for the Ravenol ATC DTF1. This should be half a litre or 0.8 of a litre, conflicting measures on that. I've gone for 2 litres here because I am intending to flush this, because apparently a flush will really help you with the transfer case. For the rear diff, it's actually exactly the same oil as the front diff, 75W90. Again, 0.8 litres, I've gone for 1 litre. I've gone out of my way to choose good brands here. Ravenol, very well respected German brand. And of course Aisin, that's actually the brand that the 8-speed gearbox is on this car, so it's definitely the correct OEM stuff. Also, it's not too expensive. There are some slightly cheaper options, but as this is going to be quite an effort, it's wise to just use the best stuff you can. Before you pull the trigger on buying all this stuff, I just need to clarify that these are the right oils for this car, this 2013 3 litre diesel Cayenne 958. It's the base model basically. If you have a 958 Turbo and it's equipped with lock-in differentials and lock-in transfer cases, you'll need different fluid. I'll do what I can to link to it in the description. I have heard of some rare cases where those with a 3 litre TDI Porsche Cayenne actually have the higher end lock-in differentials and transfer case. I think it's called Porsche torque vectoring. So it's probably worth checking the spec of your specific vehicle, or if you bought it used like I did, you might have no material on hand to know what the spec of the car was. And in that case, you can actually look underneath the car to identify whether you've got the lock-in stuff or not. I think the big giveaway is whether it's got electric plugs to it or not. When we get under the car, I'll show you more about that. Right, enough of me chatting. It's time to actually start turning some spanners. First thing to do is to get this car raised up. So I need to put the air suspension in its service height and get it jacked up. And then we can get on under. If your car's on springs, you don't have to worry about this part, but if you've got air suspension, you definitely don't want to upset it by jacking the car up without it locked into service mode. To put it into service mode, get the car started, hold up on the suspension height setting for 10 seconds until it flashes. Now we can see it flashing on the dash. We can see it says control off. Right, so we got the car locked in service mode on its highest ride height setting, and further to that we've jacked it up and got it on these 6-inch blocks. Very important that you've got the car level when you're doing this transmission stuff, because the level of the oil is governed by a fill plug and a drain plug. You'll see what I mean. So now we're happy it's level, I'm going to get underneath the car. First thing to do is to take off the front and middle under trays, the plastic ones. They are 10mm screws, and I think there's about 15 of them, so let's get that done. So that's the under trays off, and now we've got a visual on the front diff, the gearbox, the transfer case and the rear diff. I'm going to start by changing the transfer case oil. It's two 8mm Allen heads, fill plug, drain plug. So first thing to do, crack open the fill plug and just confirm that we'll be able to refill it once we drain it. Never hurts to put a bit of penetrating fluid on stuff, help it come out smooth. Okay, we need more leverage than that. There we go. Oh, alright. Do you know what? It looks really clean, that. Just going to put that back in before I make a big mess, so I can make sure I've got a pot underneath. Well, based on how clean it looks and that it's a little bit overfilled, I'm guessing whoever filled it up recently got a bit overzealous and decided to pump it in and then stick the plug in before it could come back out. It looks like the previous owner wasn't lying, because that's not its original oil. It'd be much darker than that. So maybe I might skip the flush. I might just go with a refill with the new stuff and feel happy in my own mind that it's got very clean oil in it. Right, so it looks like 0.8 of a litre came out almost exactly. So that's the amount we'll be putting back in, obviously governed by the level plug. Interestingly, information online seems to say the non-locking differentials take half a litre and the lock-in ones take 0.78 of a litre, near enough to 0.8. So there was a moment of, have I actually got the lock-in differential here? And if so, I've got the wrong oil. But having had another look online, it seems like you can identify whether you've got the lock-in differential or not by it having a big electronics connector plug up around this area. That obviously is where the computer controls the lock-in from, and non-locking ones don't have any electronic connectors at all. This one doesn't have any electronic connectors at all, so I'm very confident it's a non-locking one, and the information online's wrong. It takes 0.8 of a litre. Or 0.78. So let's get ready to refill our transfer case with this DTF1. These plugs actually have a slightly tapered thread, and they come from factory with a Permatex style thread sealer on. Seems like whoever changed the oil previously didn't worry about that and just put them back in, and unfortunately they didn't leak. I'm a bit cautious though, and it's recommended if you are reusing them that you put a little bit of RTV on the threads, which is what I'm going to do now. Right, so the manual says these torque to 16 Newton meters, but As I mentioned earlier, they are a slightly tapered thread, so if you go ahead and crank them in, there's a real risk of you cracking this aluminium casing, and if you do that, I imagine it's very expensive and it's a real ordeal to change it. So it's worth being very careful in doing this. Some people even say just nip it up with an Allen key by hand. Instead, I'm going to torque them to 15 Newton meters and just see how they feel as I go. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Just going to wipe off the excess RTV and then we'll get the oil in. It seems these Ravenol bottles have these handy spouts on, which is hopefully what we're going to use to put in the DTF1. I think we'll need to use the oil syringe later, but we've got a pretty straight shot at this one. What on earth is this? That's great. I've not seen anything like that before. Normally they're a lot shorter, but that'll do. So with the transfer case done, we've scooted over to the front of the car, between the two front wheels, to look at this front differential. Now, the differentials are the same on all the Cayenne 958s, whether it's a turbo or not. So this is nice and straightforward, there's not different oils to worry about. Again, we're dealing with 8mm plugs for the drain and the level. Now the only awkwardness here is the access to the level plug is really quite tight. You're probably not going to be able to get yourself a traditional ratchet and socket in there. So we're going to use an old school manual Allen key. Right, well that one is not overfilled, so let's see what comes out. Much darker than the transfer case, but still looks relatively clean. This seems to have only had around 550ml in it, so a little bit under full that one, because I was expecting it to be 0.8 again. Strange. We'll see what it takes. Doesn't appear to have been any leaks around it either, so that doesn't look like the oil's been lost. Maybe it was just underfilled from the off. Fortunately, the plugs on the front differential aren't the tapered type, so there's much lower chance of you actually cracking the case by over torquing them. Nevertheless, they torque to 35 Newton meters, which is how we'll put them back in. One thing to note is they are fitted with rubber O-rings. Again, it would probably make sense to at least change the O-rings, if not the plugs, but we haven't got replacements, so we're gonna run them again. Fortunately, they're in good condition. And of course, 75W90 Ravenol VSG is what's going in that front diff, and it should be 0.8, even though around 0.6 came out, so we'll see what it takes. Looks like this bottle has the fancy filler again, just like the transfer case stuff. Issue is though, I don't think we're going to be able to use it. Still very cool that, but unfortunately because of the design of that front subframe and where this fill plug is, unfortunately I'm sure we're not going to be able to squeeze that in there, so we're going to have to use the oil syringe to do that. .35 Newton meters, right, let's figure out how we're going to fill that. I've got a Sealy oil suction syringe which I've used to great success before, and I'm sure it's going to come in clutch again today. I'll link to this in the description, really handy to have. When we have got the oil in, I will let you know whether it did take the full 0.8, should be interesting. Right. Oh, there we go. Oh God. Interesting, I guess it's so thick that it's a bit delayed on overflowing. Give it a second. That'll probably do. Okay, I'm absolutely smothered in it. Okay, it looks like no matter what combination you try and use, there's absolutely no way you're getting a torque wrench on that with a regular style of socket. Maybe with a certain wobble head you might be able to do it, but I can't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to nip it up in the same way that I undid it. And fortunately, it's only the level plug, so it's not like, even if it does leak, it wouldn't leak all of it out, but do you know what? It won't leak. Done. So we've got about 100 ml that overflowed and got caught by the pot. There's 75 ml left in the syringe. There's a little bit left in this litre bottle, and there's everything that went on the floor and up my arm. So it turns out that yes, it has a 0.8 litre capacity. Very strange that it was a little bit underfilled before, but glad we've corrected it. Right, we've come all the way to the back of the car now to look at the rear differential, which is this pumpkin shaped thing here. Quite similar to the front differential. It looks like it's got the same type of plugs, which again are 8mm. And annoyingly, again, it looks like the fill plug is obstructed, but less than the other side, but just enough for me to not be able to get my ratchet in, so we'll have to do the same thing on this one. As I mentioned earlier, there are lock-in types and non-lock-in type Torsen ones. This is a non-lock-in type one. I can tell that because there are no electrical connectors to control any torque vectoring or anything like that. The lock-in one does need a different kind of oil. Check the description. Oh God, oh God. So it looks like the rear diff had its correct fill of 0.8, so let's get that replaced now with the Ravenol. That's got it. There we go, right, didn't even get covered in it this time. Right. That'll probably do. Just get that nipped up.
do.
Right, transfer case done, front differential done, rear differential done. It's gone incredibly smoothly so far, but that was the easy bit. Now we're getting on to the much more faffy part of this transmission service, which is servicing the 8-speed transmission itself. The Aisin gearbox is actually code OC8, and it's found in absolutely loads of vehicles, especially VAG group vehicles, so this part should apply to a lot of people. You'll obviously see how we get on and follow along as we do the process, but to just give a quick summary of what we're about to attempt. First thing we're going to do is obviously remove the sump plug, then some of the oil will drain. Then we'll remove a green level straw, and that should allow a lot more of the oil to drain. Then we'll take the sump itself off, at which point we'll get absolutely covered in oil, I'm certain, because you can't drain it all. Once the sump's off, we'll replace the filter for the sump, the O-ring, and the gasket for the sump. Obviously, having cleaned the sump out and got all the swarf off the magnet. And after that, we're going to start pumping in the new fluid. We're going to try and pump in around 6 litres of fluid. After that initial fill, we'll need to start the car and let it idle and try and put even more fluid in, maybe another 1 to 2 litres, depending on what went in the first time. Then we'll need to put it through its gears whilst the foot's clamped down on the brake so it doesn't jump off its supports. Then we need to refit the sump plug, let the engine idle so the gearbox gets up to a temperature between 35 and 45 degrees Celsius. And then we need to take the sump plug back out and let the excess drain out before finally refitting the sump plug and calling the job done at the right level.
So the gearbox itself is this thing, and this is the sump. Here's the drain plug for it, and the fill plug, of course. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can remove this cross brace, because I can just see it getting in the way just a little bit, and if we can remove it easily, why not? Right, now we'll get the sump plug out, see what comes out. That's got it. Alright, so 550ml has come out before I've even taken out that level straw. So the level straw is a green tube that's just in here, that's a 5ml, made out of plastic. Once this is out, a lot more oil should come out. Here it is emerging. Okay, right, here we go. Right. So I've got the yellow catch can ready, which is much larger. I'm going to transition over to it. Just in the nick of time. Right, so we're down to drips again. So the next thing to do is to actually take out all of these 10mm screws that hold on this sump. There's 11 of them. Some of them are a little bit awkward to get to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the ones out from this end and just get these ones loose so I can allow this end of the sump to tip down, at which point there'll be a waterfall of oil, because as you can see the sump is lower than the drain hole. Oh bother. Really is full of oil. Oh Lord. we'll give this a really good clean and have a close look at those magnets before we put that back on. But first, I'm going to take off the filter that's under the car and replace it with this new one. It's got a new O-ring as well, which we'll put onto there. It's on 4 10mm screws. Let's hope I don't drop any of those into that bucket.
It's the right type. It's in another oil waterfall because I'm certain this filter will be full of oil. Oh heck! I'm covered in it. I was expecting it to come out the other end of this.
I know. Right, move out of the way. Keep moving upwards. It's flowing towards you. If you move now, you'll be okay.
Right, after a real good clean up, now put some newspaper down to catch the remaining drips. I've also wiped the gasket face on this just to make sure it's looking really clean. I found that screw that went into the oil pan. We're ready to start putting some stuff back together, starting by putting this filter on. It's going to make sure the O-ring is well lubed up so it doesn't get bound up. The old O-ring is on the old filter because you don't want to double stack them. And we should hear it click into place. Right. Right, these torque to 9.5 Newton meters or around 7 foot-pound. That's all. So what these 4 things are actually magnets, and it's to catch any of the swarf that comes off the gearbox. A gearbox will naturally have some fine metal particles that come off it over time. After all, you've got metal cogs meshing together. I'm not sure when these will last cleaned. I imagine we're looking at the whole 139,000 miles worth of build-up on here, because they do look a little bit gunky, but they'll clean up just fine. Right, time to put the new gasket on. Yes, it's the right shape. So on the previous gasket, you'll notice it's got metal rings. These are actually gasket spacers that I guess prevent you from torquing this down too tight and squidging the seal out the side. So we've got to transfer these spacers onto this new gasket. Right, I've cleaned all the sump bolts and put a little bit of Allislip anti-seize on them, which is just going to help them go in smoother, and it'll prevent them corroding in the future. So now, time to put this sump back on the car. Right, so I've got them all snugged down by finger. Now I'm going to torque them up. Again, just like the other 10s, they go to 7 foot-pound or 9.5 Newton meters. Right, here's the old oil. I know we might have lost about half a litre of it on the floor, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this so I know what came out, and I'll have peace of mind with the amount we put in based on that. So we've measured 4.5 litres. We think we lost half a litre, so let's say 5 litres came out, slightly less than I expected, but good to know. Okay, so the next thing we need to do before we start filling it is put the green level straw back in its home. As you saw when it came out, it goes up through where the sump plug is and engages the threads just further up than the actual sump plug, so it ends up, with the plug, ends up looking like a stack. Once this is in, you'll be ready to fill through it, and obviously the level will get up to this and won't be able to get any higher without wanting to come back out. In an ideal world, you'll have an adapter that matches the threads on this sump connected to a pressure vessel, so you can pressure fill your gearbox. Unfortunately, we don't have one of those. It's something like an M10 Fine, just for reference. What we did have was a bit of clear tube, which is similar in diameter, outer diameter. It's actually 10 mm in outer diameter, and what we're intending to do is push this into the sump hole, give it a good few twists around so it'll kind of thread its way in and give us a nice tight seal without dropping back out. And on the other side of it, we've got an adapter, which means we can come in with our suction filler, fill this full of the gearbox oil, push this on, pump it in, take it back off, go and fill it again, rinse and repeat until the gearbox has taken its fill. Right, so this green fill straw only needs to be in finger tight. It's absolutely critical that you don't snap this or you're going to have a very bad time. That'll do. And now we should put our adapter in place, and you can see exactly how it's going to work for us. It's not proper this, but I'm feeling slightly optimistic about it, only slightly. There we are. Right, if all goes to plan, we're going to try and put 5 bottles in, which is a little bit under 5 litres. The bottles actually come in US quarts, so they're not exactly litre equivalent. Just need to take our time with this. It's going to be quite a few syringes full, but we'll see how we get on. Most important thing is I don't pull that out and have an oil bath. That's number 1. It's going to flow out when I pull this off this time. So we may be up to the straw. it's more or less stopped dripping back out now. About half a litre's dripped out of it. So the next thing to do is get the car started, stick it into each of its gears with the foot firmly clamped on the brake so we don't jump off these cribs. And what should happen then is that oil should get drawn up into the system a bit more, and then we can attempt to put another few litres in there.
Feel the car rock slightly as it engages different gears. I'm going to let it sit in each gear for maybe 10 seconds or so and run up and down the box a couple of times, and then we'll go and see if we can get some more oil in there. I think it's full. It's going to leak out when I do this. Yeah. I think we need to put the sump plug in immediately. Give it a little nip with the Allen key. Good. Right. Turn the car off. We'll check the temperature of the box.
Okay, that was all quite exciting, and our makeshift adapter tube worked perfectly in the end. The car took 6.1 litres. Bear in mind we removed 5 litres. So there is a difference there, which takes us to the final stage of this job, which is draining out the excess oil that we've just pumped in. To drain it out, to get the level set perfectly, you need to have the car running, and it needs to be in a very specific temperature window between 35 Celsius and 45 Celsius. So what we're going to do now is find out the temperature of the transmission. There's 2 schools of thought with confirming the transmission oil temperature. Some people have apparently got away with using one of these simple thermometers to check the side of the transmission for its temperature and got away doing that. But if you're really serious about doing this and getting it right, you want to be using a scan tool. I'm going to be using this Launch X431 Pro. I've used this tool in a few videos now and it's impressed me with the power of it. I've done a whole dedicated video about it. If you want to find out more, I could definitely recommend it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the launch box turned on and plugged in, and then we're going to confirm the transmission temperature. Out of interest, I'm also going to check the temperature of the transmission underneath the car using this. If you're in a pinch and you haven't got one of these, then maybe you can get away with this knowing the conversion factor, or a reasonable approximation anyway. Right, let's get it plugged in, find out the temperature of the transmission. Right, so we're going to go into system selection here. We're transmission control module. We're going to read data stream. We've got temperatures up here. We're interested in transmission temperature. Okay, we've got a value of 42. We can even graph it over time, so we can hope it'll cool down a little bit. But as I mentioned, between 35 and 45 degrees Celsius is the window to drain the excess oil out. So we might give it a few minutes here, but we'll probably start the car in a moment and then drain it. Now I'm going to jump underneath the car and I'm going to check what temperature the actual physical transmission is. So 43 on the scanner, and right in the middle of the sump it's saying 28.6 degrees at the moment. On the side of the gearbox we're saying 35.8. So yeah, looks like it's about 10 degrees out versus the scanner. As we are within that 35 to 45 degree temperature window, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the car on and let it idle. I'm going to jump underneath the car, quickly take out the sump plug and we'll see what happens. What I'm expecting is a stream of oil, and hopefully that'll stop and turn into only a drip. When it's only a drip, you put the sump plug back in and you have set the level, and it should be perfect. Let's hope it plays out just like that for me. What's critical here is that you're only setting that level whilst the transmission is within that temperature range. If it creeps over that range, and it will be going up whilst it's idling, then you need to put the sump plug back in and abort, walk away, let the car cool back down, and then come back and repeat the process until it turns into just a drip.
Gone down 41 degrees now. Right, we're down, it's no longer a straight stream, it's only drips. So I'm going to call it, there you go, just drips now. The temperature's still 43 degrees, so perfect. Right, I'm going to torque up this sump plug, hopefully for a final time. And it torques up to 16 Newton meters or 12 foot-pound. That should do it.
Right, well, I took the car on a gentle test drive straight away, having done the job, and it seemed to go very smoothly, and then I pressed it straight back into service and daily duties. So we're a week later now, and I'm pleased to report there are no leaks and the gearbox is shifting absolutely perfect. There's no strange noises. I'd say it's a very successful job, and I've now got full peace of mind. If I'm being totally honest, it wasn't the most fun DIY job I've ever done. Mostly because it involved laying on my back underneath the car and getting covered in oil, which is never a fun gig, is it? But I shouldn't have to think about this again for another 80 or 90,000 miles now, so it's really quite good news. If you've got access to a lift, you'll find the job much easier, but hopefully the video's proven that you can do this in a home garage, or even on a drive if you really needed to. Don't forget that all the links are in the description to all the correct parts and fluids that you're going to need. So check that out. If it's been helpful to you, make sure you give me a like. Thank you very much for watching. There are a few more things to come with this Cayenne, a few more fixes I need to do yet. So do subscribe so you can follow along with that. Cheers.